Hey guys, today we're going to review Unit 9, which was all about circles. So we're not reviewing everything that was in the unit, we're just going to review what is going to show up in the semester exam. So to start out with, you need to remember how to find circumference and area of a circle, and those are the formulas right there. Circumference is 2 pi r, and area is pi r squared, where r represents the radius. So for number 1 here, it says find the circumference and the area of each circle. So this one, we're lucky because they give us exactly what we need. 4.5 is the radius of this circle. So to find circumference, it's just going to be 2 pi times 4.5. And then you could just put this into the calculator, and this will give us 28.27. Okay, and then if we want to find area, that's pi r squared. So pi times 4.5 squared. And again, you just have to throw this all into the calculator all at once. And I get 63.62. And since it's area, it's going to be inches squared. Okay, let's look at the next one. So this time they give us all the way across. This is the diameter, but we need just the radius. So half of 28 is going to be 14. So that's going to be our radius. So again, circumference, the formula is 2 pi r, so 2 pi times 14. We'll just throw this all into the calculator, and we get 87.96. This time they're measuring in centimeters. Okay, and then for area, our formula is pi r squared, so it's going to be pi times 14 squared. So area is 615.75, and this will be square centimeters. Okay, our next one. So these are a little bit different. It says find the radius of each circle. So each question gives us different information. This first one says find the radius of the circle that has a circumference of 28 meters. So we know that the formula for circumference is 2 pi r, but they told us that their circumference is 28. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in for C. So now our job is to solve for r. They want radius. So really there's only one thing to do here. We're going to divide by 2 pi on both sides. So what's going to happen is that on the right side, those will cancel out, and I'll be left with just the r. But on the left side, this will give us an actual value. So let's put this into the calculator. 28 divided by 2 pi. And that gives me 4.46. So the radius of that circle is almost 4.5. Okay, the next one says find the radius of the circle with an area of 46 square inches. So again, we know the formula for area is pi r squared, but then they tell us that area is 46. So we're going to have to do some rearranging and try to get that r on its own. So first thing I want to do is divide both sides by pi, and that'll cancel out the pi. But then that r, it's to the second power, and I want it to just be normal. So we're going to go ahead and square root both sides, and that'll cancel out the little exponent. So that on the right side, I'll just have radius, but on the left side, we could just put that whole thing into the calculator. So square root of 46 divided by pi. And that gives me 3.83. So the radius of this circle is a little bit less than 4. Okay, let's look at the inside. So next thing we need to remember about circles is central angles. A central angle is an angle with its vertex at the center of the circle and its two sides are radii. So you see D right here, that's the center. And if you go center to edge and center to edge, those count as radiuses. Okay, so if you want to find the measure of that arc formed by the endpoints of the central angle, it is equal to the degree of the central angle. So what that means is that the measure of arc AB, right here, that would be the same thing as this angle here. So it's just going to equal x degrees. Now for the measure of ACB, so just follow the letters A, C, B. So that larger part, you have to remember that circles make a total of 360. So we would have 360 minus x, and that would be the degrees of that arc. Okay, so find each arc measure or value. So this first one has quite a few that are missing. So let's see what they start out with. So they start out by asking for the measure of JK. So JK is right here. So we have that central angle. It's 24. So that means that that arc is also 24. Okay, next up they want LM. LM is this other side. But if you look at those angles, they're across from each other, which makes them vertical angles. So this angle is also 24, which means that this arc is also 24. Okay, next one, KL. KL, okay, right here, the bottom part. So this one, we don't know the central angle yet, but it's pretty easy to find. So since it's going exactly through the center and it's making a straight line, we know that all straight lines have to equal 180. So if I already know that this part is 24, we're going to do 180 minus 24, and that gives me 156. So this central angle is 156, which means that the arc, KL, is also 156. Okay, and then the last one, MJL. So just follow the letters. Here's M, J, L. So that's almost all the way around. It's everything except for this pink piece right here. So sure, you can add 156 plus 24 plus another 156. Or we can use that we know the circle's 360. We're just going to subtract the piece that we don't need. So 360 minus 24 gives us 336. Okay, let's look at the next one. It says find the value of x. So x is in this little binomial here, and that binomial, it's pointing to this angle. So it would help us a lot if we knew what that angle is. So let's see what we have. We have that this side over here is 58. Well, this over here is vertical from it, so that must also be 58. Okay, the other thing that we have is that RUS makes a right angle. And since I know that this whole thing is 180, that means that RUP also makes a right angle. So if I were to add these two pieces together, that needs to equal 90. So that's how we're going to solve. 9x plus 5, and then plus the 58 equals 90. So from here, since you're going to have your calculators, you could end solve this, but it's a really quick solve, so we don't need to end solve. We're going to combine our like terms. So that becomes 63. Let's subtract that 63 from both sides. So 9x equals 27. And then last step is to divide by that 9. So x equals 3. Okay, next thing is arcs and angles formed by intersecting lines. So specifically, we're going to look at when they intersect inside of the circle. So if two sequencer chords intersect inside of the circle, then the measure of the angle formed is equal to half the sum of the measures of the intercepted arcs. So angle formed is equal to half the sum of the measures of the intercepted arcs. So here we actually have two things to look at. So if you're looking at angle 1, you need to be looking at the arcs that go with that angle. So it all has to line up. So half of their sum. So half the measure of arc AD plus the measure of arc BC. Okay, the other angle that's here in the picture is angle 2. And same thing, you have to look at the correct arcs. So they all have to line up. So the measure of angle 2 is equal to 1/2 the measure of arc AB plus the measure of arc CD. Okay, so let's look at a few examples of this. So it just says find each measure. This first one, it says find the measure of WVX, and that's an angle. So WVX is this angle here. So it's not a central angle. If it had started here in the center, we could just say 45. But since this is a little bit farther away, it's not going to work that way. What we do need to do to solve this is know its intercepted arcs, which luckily we have them both. So the formula is that angle is going to be equal to half of their sum. So 1/2 45 plus 109. So you can throw it into the calculator all at once like that. And when I do that, I get that the measure of angle WVX is equal to 77 degrees. So that's this angle here, 77. And then since it's vertical, this one would also be 77. Okay, let's look at this next one. Find the measure of FHG. So FHG. This is the angle that they want. So I would need to know what these arcs are over here. I don't have those. Instead, they give us this top part and the bottom part. So what we're actually going to find is we're going to find this angle down here. So let's do that first and then I'll explain the rest of this. So 1/2 186 plus 112 And that gives me 149 degrees. So that would be for this part here, 149, as well as this part here because they're vertical angles. But like I said, that's not what they were asking for. They're asking for this side here. So we know that anytime you see a straight line, that makes 180 degrees. So if I add these two up, it needs to equal 180. So in order to find that angle, we'll do 180 minus the 149 that we just found. And we get 31 degrees. So that means that the measure of FHG is equal to 31 degrees. Okay, and then last thing to review in this unit is the equation of a circle. So you're always going to see it in this format. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Each of these letters represents a different thing. So h, k, these numbers that are inside of the parentheses, that is the center of your circle. So if you were to look on the coordinate plane, that point would be right in the middle of your circle. The other thing that we need to get from here is r. So r is obviously the radius. Just be careful here because it's always going to be squared. So in order to find r, you're going to have to square root this answer. Okay, so to start out with, it just says write the equation of the circle with the given information. So if I have the center, that's going to be h, and that's going to be k. And then radius is 4, that's r. So we're going to plug everything as it goes. So x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So I just plugged in all the numbers. But there's obviously things that we can simplify. So for instance here, minus a negative number is just going to turn to a plus. And then 4 squared is 16. Okay, let's do another one. So here's hk from the center, and then r is that radius. So x minus negative 1 squared plus y minus 7 squared equals 13 squared. So that double negative is going to turn to a plus sign, x plus 1. This can stay y minus 7, and 13 squared is 169. Okay, so now backwards, if I already have the equation, can we identify the important pieces? So inside the parentheses is where we're going to find our center. So it's going to be something with 9, 3. But just be careful because this has a positive sign in front of it. So it seems kind of opposite, but it's actually going to be negative 9. And then here we have a minus 3, but this is going to be a positive 3. So our center is at negative 9, positive 3. Then our radius goes with this number, but remember that has been squared. That's r squared. So if r squared equals 121, if I square root both sides, r equals 11. So radius is 11. Okay, let's look at another. So those are my numbers, but notice that they both have minus in front of them. So you always do the opposite. This is going to be a positive 5 and a positive 4. So our center is at 5, 4. Then 49 is r squared. So if I square root both sides, radius is 7. Okay, guys, and that's it for what's going to be on the semester exam. As long as you're able to understand everything that was in this video, you should get the 5 questions from Unit 9 correct.